Okay, welcome back. Let's start from our case studies. The first one starts from Costa Rica. As you may see, there is a national scale, like where it's on top of Costa Rica. Here I'd like to give you a hint that all the cases I like to share later based on national scale to individual scale, which means it doesn't matter if you find yourself like worthless, just like saving one plastic bottle to save the world. It is valuable for your behavior and it means something, right? So from your individual scale and up to your family scale, to your company scale, and up to the government scale, all of us in each scale play a big role. So don't look down yourself just like saving one plastic bottle means nothing. No, it means something. Okay. So here we started from the national scale means this country is the most well-known case when we talk about sustainable tourism. And why so? Because it's a like up-down case and started from like really early time, like 1990s. And you will see this country built such a successful impression for this destination by sustainability from the government voice. Yeah. So how did it happen? In 1940s, um, just right back after, later of the Second World War, um, the country need a horrible like national war, and people don't take care of the nature resources, of course. Then they found out, from the 40s, the coverage of the country, the country land is 75% forest. And to the 90s, they found out the forest decreased to 21%. That's a big difference. Because of that, a lot of experts, scientists, media flew to Costa Rica to save the rainforest. You must know that rainforest out there. It contains 5% of the Earth's biodiversity, and 25% of territory is protected by the national system of the conservation. Due to this biodiversity, there are a lot of species cannot just be missing on Earth. So it's an urgent call for the world to save the rainforests. And luckily, the awareness was so successful through the media that the government finally started to seriously look at the point. So they realize it's a really poor investment if you don't take care of the earth, because the farmers, no matter what, become jobless because the earth is just infertile, right? So they started to do the policies that encouraging the conservation. Started from national parks, state establishments, and they promote ecotourism. So even until now, you check OTAs, you can easily find the natural lodge or the natural adventures, and it became just like a must-do activity in Costa Rica. And of course, organic agriculture. It became a marriage in between the environment and economic in Costa Rica and put the country on the back to the right track through sustainability. And so you see from the slide that there are several amazing facts. For example, they highly use their renewable natural resources for energy, as energy. So like waterfall, solar panels, rivers, even volcanoes are the perfect resources given by God to this motherland. And by 2021, they promise they will ban the single-use plastic products, which is a very strong implementation for the tourism development at the beach. Last but not least is the CAST, Certification for Sustainable Tourism. It's the first and the most complete certificate given by the national government in the world. So what do they do? Is that they created a rank from 0 to 5, the higher the better, to check the suppliers and in this tourism field. So, for example, they do this company check, like how do you do the operation, the operation system and the infrastructure and your policy within your company, and even like how well that your engagement is with the local people, and of course where your energy comes from, so on and so forth. So these benchmark will become the reason for the customer, which is a seaside market, for the customers to choose whether they would like to buy your product or to vote for you. So this is an amazing idea that implements from the government, like to encourage everyone to become greener. And besides this CST, of course, there are a lot of certificates the government is using. So, for example, the most well-known one is Blue Flag for the sea, for the sea marine protection. And the amazing one, there's an amazing one called the Payments for Environmental Service, PES. It provides the payments to the landlords who maintain healthy, robust land. And besides that, there's also a fund disaster from the natural disaster. All of us have typhoon, you know. So they had a national emergency commission to like prevent the risk from this response to emergency situations. So from this past to present experiment in sustainability, I do have a video for you to see how the government actually did. And there were the governor in the video, but also the eco suppliers in this video say how to do it, but also the people who are still criticizing, this tourism thing just took away my water resources and and also people counting on ecotourism for survival. So I think it's a really interesting documentary. It's actually a 30 long video for you to check. So here I will only show you like a short clip, and I hope you have more interest to watch it through. And through the video, you'll see like you already know in tourism field there's so many stakeholders to like really make everything complex. But here in sustainability, it's not only the greener the better, but more balanced the better, I would say. I think it's a really interesting case for you to check how people as a different position in this field playing their own part. Let's check out this video.
Tenemos casi un 5% de la biodiversidad del mundo concentrada solamente en la península de Osa. Es una maravilla. Hay muchos tipos de flora y fauna que se encuentran solamente en esta área, en la península de Osa. Especies de árboles como este, por ejemplo, que debe tener más de 200 años. En este árbol, por ejemplo, yo he visto todos los tipos de monos que hay en Costa Rica. Entonces, para mí es muy importante proteger esto. Para nosotros es muy importante este bosque porque la gran mayoría de nuestras comunidades, el 95% de la gente aquí trabaja en turismo. O sea, casi todos trabajamos en turismo. Entonces, es como la gallina del huevo de oro para todos nosotros. Si tenemos el bosque, si tenemos los animales, vamos siempre a tener los turistas viniendo a visitarnos. Si talamos el bosque, los animales se van y quizás nadie va a venir a vernos.
Costa Rica empieza a llenar las páginas de los periódicos al final de la década de los 80. En esos años se desarrolla muy rápidamente el ecoturismo, pero de pequeña escala. Empiezan a descubrir los enormes tesoros que como país hemos sabido cuidar. En ese entonces no existía el mercado para el turismo de 5 estrellas. Desde quizás los años 70, la península de Papagayo había sido identificado como el mejor destino de todo Centroamérica para este turismo de resort, turismo masivo. Pero resulta que Guanacaste era de difícil acceso, ahí no había carreteras y lo poco que había era muy malo. Entonces empezó a pensar en la necesidad de un aeropuerto para que pudieran llegar vuelos internacionales.
Guanacaste province, where the Liberia airport is located, has traditionally been one of the poorest 2 provinces in the country. So this is an area that's traditionally been for low productivity cattle ranching and different types of farming that hasn't been particularly successful. So the idea of having tourism developing was very attractive for politicians.
Después del 2002, un grupo de desarrolladores convencen a la aerolínea Delta de que ellos viajen de Estados Unidos a Guanacaste. Yo creo que nadie se imaginó la demanda que se iba a generar.
Well, it's provided a direct access for a type of tourism that hadn't really existed previously in Costa Rica. It's more of a mainstream tourism catering to people who are looking for more of a traditional sun and sand experience in a different location. So Costa Rica is attractive because of its history and because of its nature, but the tourists that are going there are looking more for the all-inclusive destinations of different levels of luxury, generally moderately high-end to very high-end.
Empieza así entonces a llegar masivamente los grupos de turistas a Liberia y lo que ha pasado es que han llegado por montones los inversionistas, han creado nuevas carreteras, grandes hoteles con enorme cantidad de habitaciones, enormes desarrollos residenciales con casas para vacaciones o para alquiler.
Tourism is a very strange product in the sense that most products, the more you sell, the better you are. So everybody thinks the car company that sells 3 million cars is better than the car company that sells 1 million cars because they sold more. But tourism doesn't really work that way because you can have there's very different types of tourists that provide different types of impact.
Vea, para mí yo tengo años de conocer el turismo y beneficios en el pueblo del turismo, lo que hay es corrupción, vicios y cosas. Aquí no hay nada. Vienen de donde vienen en avión, llegan al aeropuerto de Liberia, van a los hoteles ahí, comen, beben y todo y se van para allá. Y al pueblo no. Algunos que trabajan ahí, pero muy pocos.
We're talking about rural communities that now all of a sudden are in the middle of the international tourism sector. So if you are used to being a cattle rancher, it's not clear exactly how you plug in. Do you become a gardener? Maybe. Do you become a hotel manager? Definitely not, because you need the language skills. Communities that were traditional Costa Rican coastal communities now are mixed in with a lot of upscale residential real estate, and they have new neighbors coming in from the United States and some from Europe. So there's communities that have expressed certain frustration that they don't really see now how they fit into their own communities.
Bueno, en sí la entrada del turismo aquí a Guanacaste ha sido para nosotros perjudicial. Por el hecho de que a cambio del desarrollo que ellos dicen que vienen a desarrollar, si quieren llevar el agua, el 90% del agua de lo que es la zona de Sardinal. Y en muchas costas de aquí, de la zona de Guanacaste, están viviendo el mismo problema ahorita. Todo lo que son las zonas costeras están construidas por hoteles, condominios, que utilizan el agua potable para piscinas, para canchas de golf.
A standard U.S. East Coast style golf course with everything green uses roughly the same water as a village of 5,000 to 10,000 people. So when the local communities see golf courses watering constantly and keeping everything green, they're right to question whether or not that's water that should have gone to them, could have gone to them, or might have been water that their community needed for future growth. And that has led to some conflict and a tremendous amount of tension in a number of different communities on the Guanacaste coast.
Ha sido un escándalo cuando quisieron llevarse el 90% del agua. Ya tenían el 80% construido, ya enterrados los tubos, sin permiso de la municipalidad. Cuando la maquinaria estaba trabajando ahí, nosotros fuimos y paramos el bajón. Como sabíamos que estábamos reclamando un derecho que era justo y por la vida de las futuras generaciones, no nos importaba si íbamos a morir o si íbamos a vivir, pero defendiendo los derechos del agua.
Aquí vienen a Costa Rica a aprovecharse de las riquezas que Dios nos ha regalado, esas preciosas playas, a construir edificios inmensísimos en los cerros. ¿Cómo es posible que aquí estén haciendo lo que les da la gana en este pueblo tan humilde y tan pequeñito que es?
Para nuestro país no es beneficio de que los extranjeros vengan a desarrollarse o las empresas transnacionales con los recursos naturales, que es lo poco que nosotros tenemos de valor. Pero para nosotros hoy el agua es el petróleo nuestro, porque es lo único, los bosques, el agua, lo único que nosotros tenemos de valor es eso.
Claro, ya quedó sembrada la cizaña en el pueblo. El pueblo está alerta y relativamente muy activo a no ceder ni un poquito, a que no se nos lleve nada de agua, porque ese es un negocio millonario de extranjeros. Al pueblo no le queda nada.
Eso, a mi forma de ver, no es ni será nunca sostenible. No es porque ha causado degradación. La gente local que un día se sintió que todo eso era parte de ellos, hoy en día se siente atónita a ver las cercas y las murallas que se han construido muy cerca de la playa.
We should be evaluating tourism on the amount of socially positive impact that the tourists bring into the country, the amount of environmental protection that comes about because of that tourism sector. If we could get tourism ministers rewarded for that, then we would have radically different outcomes and much better decision making in terms of what type of tourism countries choose to promote. Cruise tourism is a very unusual business sector. It can have very positive, intense local impacts in port towns. Unfortunately, in Costa Rica, that really hasn't been how it's played out. The cruise business basically is like an all-inclusive resort that travels around to different countries. Usually the cruise ships arrive in the morning, and their shoreside services providers drive buses to the cruise ships, and then they're taken to the environmental destinations and other tourism destinations around the country. The primary beneficiaries of cruise tourism have really been the cruise lines, because Costa Rica opens up a top-of-mind destination to their clients. The problem is that what's in it for the country is not entirely clear.
Independent tour, rainforest, private tour, full air condition de minivans. Tengo más de 20 años trabajar en este mercado y aquí sigo, no puedo pasar más arriba porque las grandes transnacionales no nos dan chance para llegar más a donde queremos llegar. Aquí quedamos de maceta y no pasamos de corredor.
Nosotros damos un servicio de igual y algunas veces hasta de mejor calidad que el que brindan ellos. Porque el servicio que damos es completamente privado. Estamos con el turista todo el viaje. Vamos a lugares que los grandes autobuses no pueden entrar.
On the ship they say to be careful about taking independent tours for insurance purposes. And sometimes there are hidden costs and things like this, and there's no guarantee that you'll get back to the ship before it leaves.
Lleno de 1,000 personas más o menos que se pueden bajar en un crucero que queda aquí en Punta Arenas. La mayoría se van. Aquí en Punta Arenas lo mucho pueden consumir 5, unas 6, 10 personas.
Yo vendo artesanía y aunque vendemos, pero vendemos muy poco.
The average tourist expenditure in Costa Rica was $67. Providing that much infrastructure to get $60 per visiting passenger is not necessarily such a great deal.
Nosotros ni nos conocen ni los conocemos a ellos. Ellos vienen, se apean, se montan al bus, se van y cuando vienen se montan al barco.
So there's a lot of road infrastructure that's required, there's a lot of parking that's required, there's a lot of diesel fuel that's required to move tourists around the country for relatively little left back in the economy.
Que en realidad el ecoturismo se generó primero alrededor de Manuel Antonio. Manuel Antonio geográficamente es una de las zonas más hermosas por su paisaje. Y uno de los hoteles que conozco es el Hotel Sí Como No. Ese hotel ha cuidado más de 12 hectáreas de bosque y ha ocupado en el proceso de construcción menos del 1% de ese territorio.
La visión nuestra fue crear un hotel con un excelente confort, creando el más mínimo impacto en la naturaleza. Para la conservación del agua, recolectamos el agua de lluvia, por ejemplo, aquí todo el agua de este techo lo recolectamos en estos 3 tanques. Esa agua la utilizamos en la lavandería y eso nos ha disminuido en más de un 35% el consumo del agua. Los desechos orgánicos que producimos en el hotel vienen aquí a producción de lombricompost. Nosotros en el Hotel Sí Como No producimos nuestros propios abonos. Jardines 100% orgánicos, libres de agroquímicos. Ya ahora tenemos hasta una gran economía dentro de la empresa porque hace unos años comprábamos las plantas. Ahora el mismo equipo de jardinería del hotel produce tanto los abonos para los jardines como las plantas. Aquí en esta área tenemos un colector solar. La alta temperatura hace girar el agua. Este sistema es más accesible, no es a tan alto precio. Entonces tenemos el agua caliente para los edificios, tenemos el agua caliente para el jacuzzi y tenemos el agua caliente para el restaurante, para la cocina.
El Hotel Sí Como No utiliza apenas el 50% de la electricidad que utilizan otros hoteles de igual tamaño. Y lo hizo con un enorme esmero. El hotel está inmerso a la par de los árboles, respetando todo su entorno, más bien protegiendo todo ese terreno. Y en cambio, a la par ahora nos encontramos otros desarrollos que empiezan con los grandes tractores que lo que vienen a hacer es a botar todo para empezar a construir de cero, con los grandes moles de cemento. Y eso es una tragedia, porque Manuel Antonio es un ambiente, es una zona que es extremadamente delicado.
En la entrada del Parque Manuel Antonio, ustedes se van a encontrar con un hotel impactante. Hemos visto, por ejemplo, destrozar árboles donde antes era un corredor donde los monos tití se desplazaba a otras áreas.
Menos común ver tucanes ya. Y antes había mucho más bosque. Ahora ustedes ven muchos más edificios.
La alta cantidad de turistas fue haciendo que las aguas negras de los baños iban a caer a quebradas como estas.
Estaba, que era aguas negras. Pero ahorita están más o menos limpias.
Okay, so let's get to the other country that also starts sustainability from the national scale, called Slovenia. It is a small country, states besides Italy and close to Austria. It's a very little tiny country that many people even confuse from Slovenia and Slovakia, you know. So, but in sustainability, once again, it's also a very successful case. I would like to show you a quick video of how Slovenia sees sustainability in their life. Here, I would like to say a truth that for Slovenians, protecting the nature is just a no doubt thing from their education. So the country is covered by forest up to 60%. So they are always surrounded by nature, and they never find it a thing that to emphasize sustainability. That's probably the basic of the basic for the success of sustainable development in this country. So I just want to share with you a quick video of how it happens in their life. And since it's hard to imagine what kind of this country is, it will give you a short impression, and then easier for us to discuss this country later. Let's check out this video.
In the last few years, Slovenia, a quaint country of just 2 million people, was declared the world's most sustainable country, and its capital Ljubljana earned the title of Europe's greenest capital. But how did this tiny nation of Slovenia become a global leader in sustainability? As sustainable travel advocates, we decided that there was no better way to find out than to immerse ourselves in the country firsthand. Exploring Slovenia with local guides allowed us to quickly understand that in Slovenia, sustainable living isn't just a marketing slogan, it's a way of life. Our first hint was an introduction to Slovenian cuisine, fresh, full of flavors, sourced directly from local farms and urban gardens. Farm to fork here is the only way. As our trip continued, we discovered an abundance of parks, preserves, mountains, and rivers. It is in the great outdoors that the locals spend their free time, hiking, kayaking, and biking. And with beautiful scenery like this, we couldn't resist experiencing the great outdoors ourselves. Luckily, getting around Slovenia in an eco-friendly way was easier than expected, thanks to the country's well-developed electric vehicle infrastructure. We loved cruising around the country in our zero-emission electric car. It didn't take long for us to be convinced. Slovenia's sustainability mindset was evident in every small town we visited, every hotel we stayed in, and in every local we met along the way.
All right, so Slovenia, as you see, it's so green, right? And you probably see there is a branding call out there, which is called Slovenia is green. As you see from the right side, what I write down for their DMO branding is that they not only call Slovenia as green, but they say Slovenia is developing green, and Slovenia loves green. And it's just a strong spirit in this branding of a national scale, they say this the tourism board of Slovenia. And so what do? Based on their attitude from the locals, the tourism board, they start this branding thing, right? Like that sets green as our strongest advertisement. So they actually compare themselves with other neighbors as competitors, who is Italy, like, okay, one of the most popular destinations in Europe in tourism. And Austria, well, it's still like more well-known than that. And Croatia, down out there, also well-known by their beach. And there is no beach in Slovenia. Well, this is a small site. So nevertheless, they couldn't find a good term, a good concept for their home country, but green. That's why they started to like heavily implementing the green scheme of Slovenia. So what did they do? They also they learned from Costa Rica, and they set a lot of certificates to benchmark, to give locals a benchmark so that they can value or estimate or follow up the approach of sustainability. So they started from the highest level of certificates worldwide. So from the UN, from the European Union, so-called like Global Sustainable Tourism Certificate, GSTC, or ETIS, European Tourism Indicator System. So they use other systems to evaluate their products first, and to allow this destination to benchmark their performance against others. And then they started another certificate by their own, which is called the Slovenia Green Label. And why is that? They firstly set a very high standard from the world to look themselves for and to train themselves. And then to localize this thing, they invented their own local brand. And what's more, as long as you have this label, the government would like to promote you and your product first, whenever they go to international tourism trade, tourism fair, they take you the first. And that's the reason they encourage you to join this Slovenia Green Project. Yeah, and the other thing is that they also have a strong initiative to apply for the green papers. So let's say the capital called Ljubljana is the green capital in Europe in 2018, I remember. And what do? Because they apply for it, so you always need a reason, right? Otherwise, how could you get chosen? What they do is that they ban the cars, the vehicles in the city for their old town district. So in their old town district, it's full of the beautiful architectures built by 18th century. And to protect them and to keep pedestrians more time to enjoy the atmosphere, to spend more to the local suppliers, and to decrease the CO2 emission, they just ban the vehicles. You cannot just enter. Of course, there's a certain time for them for the shipping of each restaurants or the supermarkets before 10 a.m. But after that, the whole place is just for bicycles and pedestrians. And the parking is another issue, right? So they put all the parkings beneath the earth, like down out there. So you won't see cars or motorcycles on the street in most of the time. And that also decreases noise and make local have a better living quality. The photo I attach here is the recycling approach they do. So for one single bin, they separate 3 different recycling approach: plastic, paper, and general products. And let's check out the green scheme I just mentioned. These are so many suppliers so far already got the label from the government. And just give you an idea that the total number is this. And of course, the number is still growing. So it's just an idea for you to understand how do they do from this national scale to everyone's life. And for Slovenia, I do prepare a very short video, just like 1 minute, to tell you how Ljubljana, the city, becomes sustainable, and how do they face this noise firstly from the people, and then how people actually love it. Let's check out this video.
In Ljubljana, we closed the city center completely for traffic, but among others, we have a central market in the city center. So we needed to think about all who wanted to walk from the central market to the first bus station, because in 5 years, the pedestrian zone enlarged for 620%. So then we started to think what to do so people don't have to walk for such a long way. So we put on streets little electrical cars called the Cavalier, the Chevalier, the gentle helpers, and the drivers are really, really friendly, nice, and they're driving people around for free. You can just wave to them, or you can call them and they come and pick you up. And it became such a popular means of green mobility transport in Ljubljana city center that sometimes locals call them just for fun to drive them around.